I'm not sure. This is the Family Showdown! Hi folks, today we're looking at the top 10 things that make a game great. These are the factors that contribute to us loving a game. And I kind of put my list together, obviously from what I think is most important to some of the things that might not be as important, but they still contribute to me liking a game.
Yeah, like maybe not necessarily one of these things may not make or break the game,
Right.
but they might have. And we'll probably explain that when it does.
Okay, you want me to start? Or you?
Sure, go ahead. Number 10.
Alright, my number 10 is replayability. Now you would think that would be higher up on my list, but we have a number of games and we tend to kind of play different games as we go. We don't really play the same games over and over and over again. So there may be a big gap between the time we play a game and we play it again. So it's like almost it's fresh and new again. So replayability isn't quite as important, but it's still pretty important. You don't want the game to seem like the same every time you play it. But this would be higher up on our list if we own fewer games and played the same games over and over again, I think. But it's still very important.
Yes, and I kind of did my list a little bit differently from yours then, because I considered these things contributing to replayability. Because I consider that so essential to a game that I didn't even think about listing it. If that makes any sense, probably not.
Yeah.
But
well, you can be. Yeah, I can understand. My list is very generalized, and I can see it being more specific, which is fine. I mean, it gives us stuff to talk about, right?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, replayability is huge, because if I don't want to play it again, then it's not a great game.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I guess that's probably like my number 1 plus. I'm not the best at making these lists, so my number 10 is art, and that sounds really kind of random. This again is not necessarily going to make or break a game, but it can definitely set the pace for one. It can vary wildly, and this is a very general term. So one example I can think of is we have one game that is, and I can't think of it, it's like Battle Wizards or something. The art in that is absolutely horrendous.
Oh,
it's
Epic Spell Wars.
Yes, Epic Spell Wars, that's what it is. And it's just kind of gross and just like, I don't even want to mess with the cards, but the game's hilarious. But it's not one that I'm going to pull out with my kids. Right. Because the art is just gross. Right. And so to me, like, we hardly ever play that game. Right. Because the kids are always around. So it's not and it's not like it's like a grotesque game in and of itself. The game is just kind of silly. You're just attacking each other and blowing each other up. There's nothing in the game itself that makes it not kid-friendly necessarily, except for that dang art. The other stuff too, what'll make a great game, awesome game, is also the art. Right. Because if you've got beautiful components like Dixit or Mysterium and some of those other ones, sure, you could play those games, but what makes them a notch above what they, a boring game would be that you have these beautiful cards to look at, and you have different things. They have so many different little details in the pictures that help make the game awesome. Yeah, so
definitely table appeal is a big factor for making a game fun.
Yeah,
I agree.
So
my number 9.
Yes.
My number 9. I couldn't figure out I may have to use your grammar skills on this one to get the right conjugation of this word. But the word tactility.
Like, are you talking about
tactile?
Like how tactile it
yes,
is?
tactileness. Like, I like touching things when I play games. I want to roll dice. I want to move pieces around. I want to fiddle with cards. I want to be involved. I want to move and maneuver and build and create, and that's fun to me. It's me, just doing something and maybe moving a piece every once in a while. That doesn't really do it for me. I want to roll some dice, and I want to move pieces and move armies around and play cards and things like that. That's really, I want to be engaged in the game. I don't want the game just to be laying there and I'm just kind of looking at it. I want to be involved. I want to do things.
Okay, the word you're looking for then is probably kinetic. You're a kinetic player. You want to play with motion. You don't want to sit and look at things. You're actually involving your body with it. So yeah, you're more of a kinetic. Yeah, it's almost like the same thing as like learning styles and stuff. So yeah, that makes perfect sense. And you want action.
Yeah, and in relation to this, our number of dexterity games have been
been going
up recently.
Yeah,
So-
the kids like those too.
I like that word. That sounds very, very, very official, kinetic. I like that. That's my number 9. Apparently, kinetic.
Kinetic.
Yes.
Use the kinetics.
Yes.
I like that. Okay. mine. I'm going to sound so OCD with some of mine compared to yours. My number 9 is the packaging and the game storage, and I mean this in kind of a twofold way. Like, do you have a ginormous box, but you only have a little teeny tiny game inside it? That's annoying. Okay, because you can't store that thing. It's going to just fly all over the place. And also, does it have great storage for easy setup and take out, put away, all that kind of stuff? Some of the big games, there's just no way for them to do a really good job for that necessarily and keep the price point low, which is where places like Broken Token come in and do an amazing job. Like, they have made Caverna for me.
Right.
Because before, we had 20,000 little Ziploc baggies for all the different, they're amazing components. But they're all just a mess in there if you don't have something organized to set them up. So yeah, you have to spend some money to set that particular game up, but Broken Token did an amazing job with that.
Yep.
But then contrary to that too, you've got these other games that, yes, sure, they kept the price point down, but if they had tweaked it just a little bit, they could have set up a beautiful storage system. I'm trying to think of what game we pulled out the other day that had everything set up. Like, Splendor has a nice job. They have little spots to put the chips in.
And
So you just
Jamaica.
pull, and Jamaica, yeah, you
Yeah.
just pull everything out and you can play.
Elysium's another good one.
Oh, Elysium, yeah. Elysium's amazing. That one's beautiful because they even have it set up so the columns are on the top and it kind of covers everything and holds it in place. It just took someone a little bit of extra time to figure out how to, they didn't have to add a bunch of extra components, but the way they stored that game was amazing. And for those longer games, if we only have a couple hours to play and it takes a half an hour to set up the game,
Yeah.
we're probably not going to get to play it. So
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, it's not on my list, but that's a great point because we haven't played Caverna in ages, and we finally bought finally got
it's right behind you. Yeah,
decided to finally
like splurge on that. That was a good.
and spend the money to get because the price point for the Broken Token's kind of high. It seems like, oh man, it's a lot of money.
We've already played those
it's,
games
It's
so
it's basically a board game. You're paying the price of a board game to get the insert. But like she said, Caverna used to take us 30 minutes to set up, and it just is like, oh, I don't even want to set that up. We
But now
played
just
it with the thing,
pull it
and
out.
it's boom, 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 and we're playing. It's like, wow, that's worth the money.
It was worth it. Yeah, that and the one for Blood Rage is amazing because we have all the crazy expansions in the works, and it all fit in that one box, which
Right.
still just blows my mind.
Yeah.
And you just pull them out, and you're ready to play.
Yep, that's a
So-
good one. That's a real good one.
Yep. So what's your number 8?
My number 8 is interactivity, which is along the lines of the kinetic thing earlier, but this is more with other players.
Players, yeah.
I mean, I like when what you do affects the other player, or games like The Resistance, where everybody's talking and engaging each other. You're not just staring down at your board and doing your own thing. You're aware of what everyone else is doing. You're talking back and forth. You're working together on a co-op game or something like that. That you get the entire table involved at the same time, and you're not just waiting for your next turn. So that's an important one for me. I do enjoy the kind of the multiplayer solitaire kind of games where you're just doing your own thing over here and you're not really worrying too much about whatever everyone else does. But for the most part, I want everyone in the table engaged and looking and seeing what everyone's doing or talking or working together.
That one, the way you described it, is less important to me because sometimes I do like to hide in my little corner and do my own little things. So that one doesn't affect me as much. But yeah, especially when the game is supposed to be like that, that
Right.
really makes a big deal. That's really important. I mean, if you have low interactivity playing Sheriff of Nottingham, it's not going to be a good game.
Right.
You need to have that high level of interaction.
I love games like that. I really
Yeah.
do love the games where everyone's participating at the same
Yeah,
time.
no, that's cool. I like that. Okay, mine's another technical. You guys are gonna make fun of me. All right, I guess I'll call this game space efficiency. Okay, the proper use of the space with what you're doing with the game. So, for example, do you have little teeny tiny cards, but you have paragraphs of text on them? Not a good plan.
Yeah.
Okay, because if everybody's sitting there going, "Gosh," and they're fidgeting around trying to read stuff, or they're having to flip back to the rule book to see if they have bigger text or things like that, then that gets kind of tedious, and you don't tend to pull that game out again, especially if it's a multiplayer game, unless you've memorized it. And,
Right.
you know, and that takes some, you know, you have to play that a few times to do that. So you're going to have to slog through that. Trying to think of some other issues with that.
Well, along the same lines, I mean, it's a little bit different, but another thing is a game that you put out on the table and it takes up the whole table.
Yes,
When it
the other end of
when
the
it only
spectrum.
really needs to, you could design it in such a way where it just takes up a small little space and you could play it on a card table. I mean, a small
Mhm.
little card table, but it spreads itself out. I mean, sometimes it's fun to have the big, immense
Well,
games.
some need it.
But
some need it.
But when you can
Yeah.
you can design it in such a way that it's could be smaller and still work efficiently. I think that
Yeah, because like I'm thinking, okay, say Fauna for example, that map is huge, but it needs to be because you can
Right.
have quite a few players, and you're going to have to be spreading all over on this map, and that makes sense to me. But if you have a ginormous map and you're playing something like Takanoko or something where you're
Right.
just moving little
Right.
pieces around, why would you do that?
well, and,
you know?
and just the opposite. If you're got a map and it's a tiny little space, you got to put 10 things on that spot, and it's like you're piling them up, and it's just the opposite of that one.
Yeah,
It's just
I know some games do it because of just sheer numbers like the war games and stuff, but I kind of get annoyed by having to put a chip down that says 10 to represent something,
Yeah.
and then I have a pile of things over
Yeah.
to the side. That bugs me for some reason.
a great
so-
example of your text is the original Ticket to Ride.
Yes,
little
Ticket to Ride.
little micro cards. And they actually made an expansion that had
And the cards are bigger.
that had bigger cards. And
Did we
that's-
even keep? I think we did keep
we
the cards, but
they're,
we never
they're,
use them.
they're rubber band up and thrown at the bottom of the box
Yeah.
somewhere. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's a good one. I like that one.
yeah. So,
So-
number 7.
7.
Yes.
7 mechanisms.
Oh, here we go. Yeah.
Just the general. I mean, there's some that I enjoy. There's some I don't enjoy, and I think that the mechanism has to work with the game. It has to
Yes.
it has to make sense. You can't, be rolling dice, and it doesn't make any sense to be rolling dice. And
hmm
some mechanisms I don't like just the basic roll and move games. I'm not really a huge fan of those. And there's just some that I love. I love worker placement's probably my favorite. So if it has worker placement, that immediately goes, okay, let me check that game out because I really enjoy that mechanism. And then there's other ones I don't enjoy as much. So
That's definitely a personal preference thing too that you'd want to explore yourself as you
Right.
go through your games and find out, okay, which games do I like because of that? And that is something, like you said, you keep it on your radar. If you really like doing the auctioning, you're going to instantly be kind of keeping an eye out for those games that have the
right.
auctioning and stuff.
Well, yeah, and then just
You're going to like them more.
And just bringing up the auction, there's different kinds of auctions I like. I don't like the blind bidding can be interesting, but when you lose your bid, it's punitive, and I don't know if I really like that. But I love auction games, so even
Yeah.
within the same kind of type of mechanism, there could be multiple ones, and I might like some and not like others. So. The main thing for the mechanism, it just catches my eye. Like I said, if I hear worker placement, that's immediately I look for that. If I go, you roll a dice and move around a board, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
let's not look at that one
Yeah.
as closely as some
Yeah.
others.
Yeah, mine kind of goes into that. Actually, my number 7 is kind of generic too. It's a smooth game flow.
Mm.
So like you can set a rhythm. There's a pace to the game. I know that sounds really weird, but especially in the big games, this is where this counts for something. So I mean, okay, for example, a little game, Star Realms. You know that you've got to have a certain number of cards in your hand, and you're gonna do. You can choose to do. You can attack or buy. You can pick your orders and this and that. You know what you have to do. Conversely, through the ages, that has a definite rhythm. Yes, there may be 30 different things that you can do on your turn, but there's a certain number of, ways that you have to do them and try to figure them out, and you have to do it the same way. There's certain rules that apply to each thing, so you're not guessing, oh geez, what do I do with this again and this and that. Every turn it's the same way. So if I'm going to go and buy something, I can, the way you pay for it's the same way and this and that. So your turn you can kind of figure out, okay, this is that, and I flip a card, I grab cards at the beginning of my turn each time, or, just things like that. If it's clunky and they're not real specific about what you're supposed to do on your turn, and you keep having to flip back or it's fiddly,
Right.
it gets kind of tedious after a while.
I can't think of good examples, but I kind of know what you mean. You'll be playing along, you'll be going along, you go, oh, we forgot to do this.
Yeah.
Oh man, we got to go back and do that.
Mm-hmm.
You're going along, you're going, oh, we were supposed to do that twice.
Yeah.
Oh.
If there's a lot of exceptions.
Yeah,
and stuff
it's like,
that,
oh wait,
yeah.
everybody stop what we're doing. We have to do this thing now, and then it just.
And this is different from when you're learning the game and you just forgot. I'm
Right.
talking about there's just like you said, there's
It-
some
it-
weird exceptions, or if it's an event or something that's understandable. Okay, you should have pulled that event naturally on the turn,
Right.
and it may do something that's crazy. But
Right.
if all of a sudden, like you said, that's like, oh, well, if it's this, it's this. If it's that, it's that. And
Right.
You're having to guess around.
Yeah, it's just smooth. It just feels natural. There's not a stop and a start. Oh, we got to do this. Oh, but wait, we never got to do this.
Yeah.
It's I understand what you mean. That's
Yeah.
a good one. I like that.
Yeah, that's why I like Star Trek Fleet Captains for that reason, because it's just got a nice, real pattern to the game. You know what you're going to be
Yep.
doing, and
Each ship gets to move once. You get to do 3 actions.
yeah, it's just everything's all laid out.
Yeah.
I just like that one.
All right.
6.
I'm
6.
I'm proving you right by not knowing which number we're on.
Go ahead.
6. This is a big one. You would think this would be higher up on my list, maybe even number 1, but it's only number 6, amazingly enough. And that is theme.
No, okay.
Theme. There's certain themes I like better than others. I like fantasy. I like sci-fi. I don't like zombies as much. Certain themes appeal to me and they don't appeal to me. I don't necessarily like games with pasted on theme. I need to feel like what I'm doing makes sense and kind of in the context. There's a few games I like that kind of almost themeless, but for the most part, I like to get in the game. I want to feel a part of the game. I want to feel what rolling these dice. I want to feel like I'm doing something. I want to. It feels like everything that I'm doing has a purpose and it all flows together. It's not just okay. Let's do this action, that action, and it could be any theme you want to do those things, and generically, some themes, like I said, appeal to me more than others. I'm a big fantasy theme person. She's a big sci-fi theme person.
And fantasy, but yeah.
But like zombie games,
Meh.
So theme. So there you are. There's theme.
I like that. I'll have more comments on that later.
Oh, will
perhaps.
you? Okay.
Yes, I might. My number 6 is a clear object of the game. I think it kind of goes back to a little bit of what we were talking about on my number 7. The quote I would use for this is, "Oh wait, that just ended the game." That I
Yeah.
hate that. The no extra random ways to win.
Right.
Now, there can be multiple paths to victory. Yeah, that doesn't bother me. Sometimes those are really appealing because if you can win by war, win by victory points, or win by, there's certain things that conditions for victory, that's fine. But if they're clear cut and they're right there clearly in the objectives in the beginning of the book, that's great. But if there's something else where it's like, oh, well, if you do that, then we're done too. Okay, well,
Right.
did we win? It just kind of, it falls flat. So, fortunately, I don't really think we own. If we do, it's a very, very few games that have that.
And that's one of the things I do when I teach. That's the first thing out of my mouth is
What the object
this is what
is.
you're trying to accomplish, and then you backtrack and go, okay, this is how you're going to get there.
Yeah.
And there are some games that are really weird. It ends in this condition, but it also ends if this thing happens, and it can
Yeah.
end if this and this and this happen, or this happens over here, and you're like, what? But yeah, like she said, we don't really have a lot of games like that. And if there's multiple ways for the game to end, I stress that. Okay, it ends on after 10 turns, or if
Yeah.
this stack of cards runs out.
Yeah.
The players need to know what triggers the end of the game, and obviously how you win the game.
Especially if it's a big game, there is nothing more tedious than you're trying to build up your deck or your peoples or your country or whatever you're doing, and you're working really hard, and someone's like, oh, well, the game's over. Okay, well, I could have been working towards that. I didn't even know that was a condition.
Yeah,
It was
exactly.
just like,
Exactly.
so, yes, that's my number 6.
All right, so I'm number 5.
Why, yes.
My number 5 is the number of players the game plays.
Yes.
Now, normally, if you got a solid game group that you game with all the time, this may not be an issue. But we play 95% of our games 2-player. So if it doesn't play 2-player 1, it's probably not going to get bought unless
Yeah.
it's a really amazing game.
Yeah.
2, it has to play well 2 players for it to be bought. So those that's kind of my number of players. It's both that it plays 2 players and plays well 2 players is extremely important for me. And I would love to have a regular game group, and I would love to.
But it's hard, yeah.
It's hard.
When you have kiddos and stuff. It's
Right.
just, and everybody lives so far.
I mean, we're lucky to schedule a once a month game group kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we play. The kids are getting older, so we're actually able to play with them more and more.
Yeah.
But most of our gaming happens after the kids are in bed, and it's just me and Rebecca. So 2 players is very important. So the number of players. So it's even better if it plays well 2 player and more players, because that's like a hitting it out of the park, right? Because then we can play it with just us, or we can play it in the game group as well. So that's
and conversely too, if it fits like the game says it plays really well with 4 players, it better play well with 4 players. Because our infamous example for this would be Catan.
Yeah. Oh.
We got the 5th player expansion. Don't do it. There are so many games that you can play for 4 hours that have a lot more involvement
4
and
hours
stuff.
of Catan.
Oh wow, that's a lot of Catan.
But along this lines, I want to kind of do a shout out to Board Game Geek, because if you can go there, you can type in the name of the game, and you can kind of scroll down, and it shows the number of players, and there's like a voting thing below it, and you click on that, and it'll tell you people's recommendations for the number of players. And I use that.
Is cool.
I use that quite a bit. And if it has 50% or more recommended for 2 players, then it's pretty good chance it's a pretty good 2-player game.
That's cool.
So just kind of a on the side bonus.
Yeah, that is a bonus. That's pretty cool. Okay, my number 5 is that the theme or abstraction fits with the gameplay. So it kind of goes along with what he says, but I tweaked it a little bit.
Yep.
I am not a fan of the slapped-on theme. Now, I grew up playing abstract games and stuff. So, chess and Go and things like that. I don't mind doing that occasionally. I like playing those games. I like, they don't necessarily have to have a theme. My favorite games seem to be themed.
Right.
And I really enjoy those. But, again, they have to be a good theme. A slapped-on game that is anything, okay, so, like, Nessa's got, just as a lame example, but she's got Super Mario Connect 4. It's no different from Connect 4.
Right.
It's got stickers on it that have the Mario characters.
Right.
Big whoop.
Right.
And there are much bigger and much more expensive games that sadly do the exact same thing. And like the Star Wars glut of games last year, there were a handful of those games where it was very blatantly obvious they said Star Wars all over it, but they just slapped that on there, and the game itself was no big deal. You could have put anything on that. And so that one, that's a really big deal to me. Like one of my favorite games that has a really strong theme, and again, it was one of those games that at first we were like, do we want to play this, was Viticulture. So you're like, the art of winemaking sounds like the most boring game on the planet. But that theme is amazing.
Right.
Once you get in there, I mean, you really are. You're going through and you're growing the grapes and you're selling them and stuff, and it's a Euro game. It's really fun, though.
Right.
And the theme is really solid with that. And at first, you might kind of raise an eyebrow over it, but again, it had a really strong theme, and it worked with that game.
Right.
So,
yeah, and along those same lines, a lot of games where people say, oh, that's themeless, it doesn't have a theme. The theme can be what you make of it, right? If you get if you get into the game and you kind of feel a part of the game, like Trajan's a good example. A game we just recently got. It's a lot of people say no theme, it's themeless.
No,
you're just putting guys on a board, and you can be anything. But I like the fact that you get votes in the Senate, and you go over here and you can do shipping to other countries, and you go out here with your warriors and take over lands and explore. I mean, obviously there's some things. I mean, it's a Euro game. Obviously, you're collecting
you're moving cubes and things and
stuff.
Right.
But if you get into it and you go, I'm getting the votes in the Senate. I want to be the what's that guy's name? The guy the leader guy you're trying to become. Oh, whatever.
What?
Starts with a C. The leader. What you're getting votes for?
Consul.
Yeah, there you go.
Consul?
There you go.
Sorry.
Yeah. So anyway, so if you get into it, like, I'm the
consul.
Yeah, it's what you make of it. Games are what you make of it.
Oh yeah, some of those. Yeah, because I mean, same thing with oh my gosh, Scoundrels of Scorpor, Lords of Waterdeep.
Yeah.
The theme on that one's kind of thin, but it's still fun because all the missions you complete and stuff on that, are fun. Yeah.
All right.
So, again, personal preference, though.
So what are we on, 4? 4? All right, this one's got a slash. It's a word slash word. Fulfillment slash satisfaction. And this kind of goes back to my kinetics thing. Is
Okay.
I like after we played our game, we're done. You look down at the board or your little play area and go, wow, look what I did.
Yeah, that's cool.
I mean, look, like a good example of this is Mad King Ludwig. You're building a castle, and after you're done, you've built a castle. You're like, oh, look at my castle! I got all this downstairs stuff and these cool things. Or in like War of the Ring, you go, wow, look at all my armies came over from this side and they did this and that. You have a sense that I did something.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that creativity thing. I've manipulated whatever. And at the end, it's like, oh, look, like another example is like even subdivision. You go, oh, look at all I did,
yeah.
and these roads I built, and all these cool different things. It's just that satisfaction of I did something.
Yeah. Even wits and wagers. Think about that. You have your pile of chips or not
right.
at the end.
Yeah, I mean,
when you win the
you
game,
just feel like, oh, look what I did.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's part of. I mean, obviously, the main part of the game is the social and getting together and doing things, but. You kind of want to feel like you did something, right?
Out of it,
It's like, oh, look what I did.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
So there you go. That's fulfillment / satisfaction.
I like that one. That was cool. Okay, my number 4 is components. And this one seems to apply especially to like the children's games lately, but I think that this is one of those things where going too cheaply hurts the game badly. I would say company-wise, if I was to pick companies right now for examples for this, I'd say Hasbro, boo, and Haba, yay.
Yeah.
I mean, Haba, like any of the Haba games, you could pick one at random, pull it out, and the components are amazing. They're going to last forever, and that is impressive when you're talking about giving this game to toddlers.
Right.
And we have tested them. All of the games are in mint condition, amazingly, because they survive, and they're solid wooden thick pieces and things like that. And they managed to keep their price point reasonable, and that's,
right.
I mean, it's an amazing job. And then conversely, it kind of saddens me to see like a lot of the Hasbro games nowadays, because I know they want to keep the price point low, but gosh,
those games are kind of hit and miss. They've got some that are just garbage.
Yeah.
They have a few that are really, really good. So,
yeah.
Like the Star Wars. Is Star Wars Risk? Is that the one?
I
think that's Hasbro.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. So they're hit and miss.
Yeah, but back in the day, like Parker Brothers and all those were like, those games lasted, and it's just kind of weird to see that now. But yeah, and like Caverna, the pieces in that are amazing.
Right.
And they're solid and they're shaped, I mean, if you've got little sheep or whatever, they're little sheep shaped, just cute little touches that they add to the game that make the theme stronger or make the game more fun to play with. So.
Yeah. Not to spoil, but I will. This is my number 11.
Yeah.
So it just fell off the list. It's extremely important to me, the components. But if the game is solid and a game is fun, I can deal with cardboard shits.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why it's low. But Blood Rage, you look at Blood Rage, the miniatures are just amazing.
Yeah.
And that just, those big, clunky, humongous miniatures that you're putting on the board are just so much fun. So I'm there with you on it, but it's lower on my list.
Well, yeah, it doesn't, yeah.
Just lower on my list.
Mine is more on the kids' game end of it than our games per se. Right. Because like you said, the little blocks. And stuff
we just not to harp on Trajan again, because that's one of the most recent games we played. But that's just a bunch of cardboard.
Yeah.
It's just a big pile of cardboard.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
All right. So what are we at? 3?
Yeah.
My number 3. I'm calling memory making.
I like that. I know where you're going with this.
So what? You can play a game and get done, and 5 minutes later you're like, you don't even remember what happened in that game. You're like, did I win? I mean, I like games when you're done, you're like, oh, wow, that was awesome. Remember when you did that? Remember when you moved that piece there and did that? Or, man, if I would have done this instead, I would have, this would have happened. Or at the end, you're like, oh, you almost made it, and the thing happened, and you talk about it, and you're still talking about it half an hour later, like, oh man, I wish I would have done this instead, and that, and this, and that was really cool. That's what I love in a game, is when you're done, you're like, oh, 3 weeks from now you can ask me about that game. Like, oh, that was awesome when that happened.
What's fun about that too is that hits every game at every level because we've had funny, memorable games
Right.
with animal upon animal,
Right.
with the kiddos, or coconuts, something really silly and cheesy, but they
Or
make
tumbling
great
dice
stories.
when you get that perfect shot. It's
Yeah,
just not two
it doesn't
people off and
have
it
to
lands
be
perfectly. You're
the
like, oh,
big
that was
game.
awesome.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be the big game. Although we do have some great big game memories too from that stuff. So that's awesome. I like that.
Yeah, that's my memory making.
Okay.
Number 3.
My number 3 is that is a beef we were just talking about recently. Is that all the players actually get to play because if you go through the effort of setting up the game and everyone kills you before you even get to play, probably not going to be one that you want to play again. Because we have a game and the concept I think is hysterical. It's a space game and it's called Mag Blast and you can go in and you have your spaceships and you have shields kind of and you can shoot each other and stuff. But everyone can decide, be like, hey, let's kill Carl. And we killed Carl. He didn't even get to play. So he got to help us set up the game and do everything. And then he sat there and watched everyone slowly destroy each other without firing a shot. So there's Mag Blast, and you're like, yay. But
Yeah, I agree with that. One of my honorable mentions is a little. I don't know where it would land. Probably like 12 or 13 is no player elimination.
yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, because I mean, player elimination is all and good, but you don't want to be eliminated a half hour into a 3-hour game.
Oh, well, yeah. In that
And,
case,
and
yeah.
you're just sitting here staring at the wall or playing on your phone while everyone else plays the game. So I agree with that. And
Yeah.
even the worst of that is not getting a turn.
Turn at
That
all.
is,
Yeah.
and there is several
Yeah.
games out there that if everyone goes, okay, we're just going to pick on this one guy
You're gone.
because he
Yeah,
always
yeah.
wins or he always does this or whatever,
Yeah.
and it's just boom, 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 boom. Everyone hits him and he doesn't even get to play.
Yeah.
I mean, how horrible is that?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
But see, then, well, there's some games that are still fun to, I don't know, because like King of Tokyo is so much fun. It's
Yeah,
not
but
player
it takes you a long time. Well, a fairly long time to get eliminated in that game, right?
Usually. Well, it depends on the game.
And that game,
yeah.
that game's fast enough that if you get eliminated,
That's true, you're
It's
still
only
getting
it's only going to be 15 minutes maybe before
the max.
the game ends. So.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah,
there's some exceptions to that, but I'm trying to think, I don't think really we don't have anything, thankfully.
but there's
that
games
does
like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I bet Risk you probably could lose in a couple of turns,
Oh,
and
gosh.
that game can last hours and hours and hours. Not
I don't
hard
think
on Risk.
yeah,
but
I'm trying to think if I've ever played it more than 2 players.
even
There's a reason.
like Monopoly, and there's another game you could conceivably. I mean, it would take a while for you to get eliminated, but
Yeah.
you can get eliminated in that game. You can
They
go
could
on
duke
for,
it out,
for
yeah.
another 2 more hours if they're just trading money back and forth.
Yeah,
So yeah, I like that one. That's a really good one.
yeah.
So what am I doing?
2, I think.
2, number 2. All right, this is a word invention here. Want to play againness.
Isn't that replayability though?
My replayability, I think, is different from your replayability. I mean,
Desirability to play it again?
No, my replayability means that the game is different every time you play.
Oh, okay.
That's
okay.
what I mean by replayability.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's the right word, but my replayability, I meant it doesn't feel like you're doing the same thing over and over again.
Okay.
The game changes up every time.
Ooh.
So I guess that is my number 2 is your definition of replayability. Is that when you finish the game and you're like, oh man, we gotta do that again.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Or okay, I get what's going on now. Let's try that again.
Yeah.
So I can
Okay.
try this different strategy. Or you're done. You're like, when can we play this again? This is awesome.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by want to play again. This.
Okay.
So yeah, it's just when you just know when you finish a game, everybody kind of looks at you and are like, ooh, that was pretty good. Let's do that again. And there's some games that you play and it's just you play it and play it again and play it again and play it again and play it again, like Spyfall. Like I don't think we've ever played one game of
Nope.
Spyfall. It's 6 games of Spyfall.
Yeah.
It's because you get done, you're like, oh, that was awesome. Let's do that again.
Yeah.
So that's
It's
what
different.
my thing is. And even a long game, you're like, you play along like an epic game like War of the Ring. You're like, then you get done, you're like, oh, that was great. We got to play this again soon. You know, that kind of thing. That's what I mean by want to play again. This.
Okay, that's cool. I like that. All right, my number 2 is clear instructions. Now, I'm not usually the rules person of the game, but the few times that I have, I know for a fact that the tedium of trying to sift through a poorly written instruction manual, and not just speaking as like an English teacher here, I'm talking just in general, that it should be clear cut on it. You can figure out, okay, here's the components list. Oh look, there's the object of the game. Here's a walkthrough of the turn. It should follow a logical progression. And if you have to sift through and try to figure out the basics, it's not going to be worth it because you're finding the game to be fidgety, and the more fidgety the game becomes after that, the less I want to deal with it, the less I want to play it. And fortunately, I don't have to fuss with that very often, but
Yeah.
you have to deal with that quite
This
a bit.
would probably be higher on my list, but I'm just used to it. I mean,
That's what irritates
I've
me.
read hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of rule books, and she's right. The worst rule book is you're reading it like, okay, on your turn you can do this. See page 13. On your this,
Yeah.
or you can do this. See page 22.
Yeah.
Or you can do this. See the end of the book.
Yeah.
Or you can do this. See 3 pages ago on on a general detail. It's just you're just like all over the map. Like you're like okay, how do I do this? Okay, let's go back. Oh wait, I gotta look. How do I do
Nope.
this? And
Nope. See, this is my soapbox one, honestly, because okay, you are not a, this is not just I wrote this up for my friends to play. This is a professionally printed and created. This is not amateur night. You are going out to do this professionally. Then it should look professional. It should read professionally. There are people that get paid to edit and fix these things. Hire them. Just hire them.
and beyond that, to a certain extent, if your rules are somewhat complicated, give cheat sheets. Those
are
or
wonderful.
put stuff
Yeah.
on the board to help you. There's nothing worse than when you're playing a game and you go, oh, well, hold on a second. Let's look at how to do that.
Yeah, because even like fleet captains, they've
Yeah.
got the back of the book there. It's got a nice little cheat sheet of how the
Yeah.
turn runs. A lot of the games have little cards that you just stick next to you that have a quick rundown of the turn order or whatever, and that's amazing.
And don't put a lot of exceptions in your rule. Do this, but if this is happening, do this instead.
Because
if
if it
this
has
happening,
those, it's too fiddly, and
Right.
something needs to be fixed.
and you're going to have to read several paragraphs of text to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing
Yeah.
in this exception.
Yeah.
That's a great one. That's like I said. I guess I'm just
Well, that's just me
I've
being
read so many
OCD
rule
about
books. I'm just used to it.
Yeah.
I think that's high on your list because we just played a game that had horrific rules. I mean,
Yeah, that
just
too.
to the point where we're not ever going to play that game again. So,
Yeah,
unfortunately, because it's got a good theme.
it does.
All right. So what am I on? I'm number 1, right?
You are not
Number 1. Is the game fun?
That is kind of important.
Did I have a good time playing this game? And by fun, I don't mean everyone's laughing and joking and oh, this is so much fun.
Yeah, because
At the end, did I have a good time? Was that time I of my life that I spent playing that game worthwhile? Did I at the end of it go, wow, that was a good time. I enjoyed myself. That was great. Let's do that again. And like I said, fun doesn't necessarily mean, like I said, humorous or jovial. You can have a real serious, like brain burny, staring at your board thinking game. At the end, you're like, wow, that was really cool. I enjoyed myself. That was great. So, what's the game fun? I mean, that's what it all boils down to, right? We're playing these games to have fun.
Yeah, that's the whole point of the hobby, really.
Yeah. So that's
like you said, it varies so much because what we've considered like super fun games has kind of shifted through time because we've started with some really light games and we've started playing a lot of heavy Euros recently. And again, like I said, we're not laughing at each other
in the game, you're
necessarily.
not like,
because
oh,
we do-
you did when he did that, it was hilarious. I
You
mean,
bought bricks. You
Yeah,
don't
it-
laugh at that, but it's
Right.
awesome and you had a good time with
Right.
it. So that's good. And
Yeah.
that probably should have been my number 1 because that's just such an obvious. Again, that's like my other one. I
mean,
wish
it's
I
it's
saw it.
almost it's almost too obvious, but I mean,
No,
that's
no.
why I do all of this, right?
Yeah.
Because it's fun. I mean, that's
Yeah,
if
I
it wasn't
mean,
fun, I wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, it's family time, friend time. That's where it's at. So, my number 1 is not nearly as exciting, but probably just as important. It adds to the fun is the low downtime.
Oh yeah.
Not necessarily player elimination, but I'm calling this uninvolved downtime
Right.
because there are a lot of games that you have downtime, but I need to be planning my turnout, or I'm watching the other player's strategy, or maybe we have a bidding section, or we're trading. People could potentially be trading with me, like negotiation games. There's things like that where you're going to have some downtime in between your turns, but it's not uninvolved downtime. I'm talking about, well, if I get bored enough where I'm pulling out my phone, it's pretty bad. or wanting to go grab a book, or hey, can we play another board game on the side while we're waiting for our turn to show up? Nope, probably not going to play that game a whole lot.
Yeah.
Now, there's some games that if it's a low player count, you don't have that. But if you play with more players, like Catan kind of does that. If you
Right.
play with the 5 players,
It's pretty bad.
But low player count, like 2 and 3, I love playing that. I think it cracks out fairly fast.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there's all kinds of great ways to get everyone involved, and it's not that hard. I mean, it's sometimes it can be cheesy to do that, but you can have an auction system where there's auctions going on, or there's trading. Everyone has a turn where they can trade with people, or there's some bidding or some voting or something that brings everyone together every turn. So if it's a long term, there's games that one person's turn could take 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But they need to have things going on in that turn that's involving everyone. And
even the big, heavy games, Le Havre or something, as you're building something like, ooh, he's probably going to be buying that, and that's going to block what I need to do. You have to map out, what's my contingency plan? Or War of the Ring, oh my goodness, he just put a whole bunch of military right there. He's going to attack my city. I need to be planning my turn differently
Right.
now. Even if I'm not doing a darn thing, I'm just sitting there watching what you're doing. I should be actively thinking about what I'm doing. And honestly, it kind of ties in with your fun factor, because
Right.
if you have a lot of downtime, you're probably not having a lot of fun. And that can contribute to also with who you're playing with, though, because if there's a lot of fun banter and stuff going on, that'll make or break a game, period, too. I mean, it's not just the game itself. So there's a lot of factors that can be involved with that, but...
yeah, I was thinking it's about the downtime. It almost builds on itself, right?
Yeah.
Because if there's lots of downtime, you're checked out.
Yeah.
You're like off doing whatever.
Yeah.
You're daydreaming, whatever, and you're like, oh, it's my turn. I didn't even plan anything.
Yeah. And then you're contributing to the downtime.
Because I'm like, oh, it's been a half an hour since I had a turn. What's going on? It builds on itself. You need to have way that goes back to my interactivity. You have to have things going on that everyone cares about. There has to be something that's involved. I mean, like I said, even if it's just what you do on your turn is so important to me that I have to pay attention to what you're doing. I mean, that's at least something that draws you into the game.
Well, that's why, even the worker placement games. Most of the worker placement games don't have a lot of downtime because you're noticing, oh, he just took that spot.
Yeah, but you're staring at the board. It's like, don't go there, don't go there, don't go there. Oh, you went there. Oh.
I'm trying not to look at that spot I really want. Yeah. Where'd you get that?
That's a good one. I like that.
So.
I think I hit all my honorable mentions.
Yeah, I think you did. I didn't really have any extras because you kind of.
Oh, I got one that I don't know if you mentioned how long the game plays.
I didn't, but you're right. The longevity ratio to productivity in the game.
Well, no, I mean,
are you sitting there dragging this game out, or could it have ended sooner?
No.
About,
well, that's a good point, but I mean more so. A 3-hour game for us is almost impossible to get to the table very often. So when I go to buy a game, I go, how long does this last? 3 hours? Whoa. Okay, we got 4, 5, 6, 7 3-hour games that we play once every 3 or 4 months.
Getting another
so it's like, oh, that's too long. Or if it's a 15-minute game, it's like, well, we got a lot of filler games. I mean, is it really amazing? Is it really amazing game? So we really, I like about the hours are probably our sweet spot for a game. If it's about an hour or so, that's important to me. So I mean, I didn't put it very high up because I do like games with all ranges, but it is a factor when I go to buy a game. If it's too long, too short, is it right? Too hot. Too
cold? It depends. Yeah, on your game group and your situation and everything. Because you're right. Sometimes that's all we got. It's filler game time.
Yeah.
You want to play a game? We got 15 minutes. So yeah, but
yeah, that's
so
the only one.
Depends.
You already mentioned components and the player elimination. You already mentioned those. So
yeah.
Got anything else you want to talk about?
No, apparently that's it. I think.
Well, there you go. So she wants the game to go around quickly and everyone involved, and I want to have fun. So I guess it works out really well.
I want to have fun. I like fun.
Well, there you go, folks. Our top 10 things that make a game great. We'll see you next time.
Bye.